Welcome, ladies and gents. Chris Andre here. You can find me at BetBoxing on Twitter for boxing-related tweets, or you can subscribe to the channel. Click that notifications button and get a new notification whenever a new video is uploaded. We're back to some more traditional boxing sort of videos here. The football mini-series combined with boxing history. There's a lot of boxing history there. Got some great feedback, so I thank you guys that did watch. I know it's nowhere near as popular as some of the other boxing videos. Maybe a lot of people are put off by the fact that there was so much football involved if they're straight up boxing fans. But if you are into your boxing history, I promise you there are some really interesting stories in that. The life of Arthur Craven, for instance, and so on and so forth. So check that out. Always looking forward to people's feedback. I've also been invited onto a podcast which I went on to called The Neutral Corner, and I was discussing various boxing topics with Jamie, so I will put the links of those videos in the description box of this video, so check that out too. Now, I did say I was going to be bringing about a weekly roundup show. Well, last week was the first week, this one is the second, and there's a whole lot going on in the world of boxing. What we've seen is that the George Kambosos against Teofimo Lopez fight has been called off because Teofimo has tested positive for COVID. Now, Bob, never wasting a chance to go after one of his fighters, which is ironic, came out and blamed Teofimo Lopez. In fact, he has come out and he said that, look, the contract has now come to an end, which means he's going to jump on the attack mode even more than ever before, just like he did with Pacquiao, just like he did with so many of these other fighters. And he basically said he's irresponsible. He said, this is what happens when you don't get jabbed. Well, first of all, Bob, somebody needs to sit down with you and give you a bit of a science lesson, because even the makers themselves tell you that transmission has not been proven to be affected, and it certainly does not stop you getting the virus. So this idea that if he had been jabbed, he wouldn't have got it, and you're trying to besmirch the guy's name and call him irresponsible, leave it at, Bob. Now, what you might have said, you as in a cynical person, not Bob, but a cynical person, might have said, look, Kambosos for a long time now has been saying that Teofimo's been struggling to make the weight. He's frustrated. He's been saying, look, everyone keeps talking about it lasting 3 rounds. His father's talking about it lasting 3 rounds. Teo himself's talking about it lasting 3 rounds. It better last 3 rounds, because after that, he's going to gas. He's too big for the weight. Everyone's talking about his increased strength and power. There's trade-offs to that. I'm taking this guy out. He's not going to have the stamina. Now, if that's your position, and you feel like he's lied. You know, Hatman has made a video where, and so G-Man mentioned this too, where they were both saying we've never been in a situation where it's been easier to find an excuse to duck out of a fight. Okay, it's a very convenient excuse developer, this virus, right? So maybe you could accuse Teofimo of something like that, because Kambosos has been saying he might not even turn up for the fight. He can't make the weight. He's going to struggle. So when it then happens, Kambosos might say, well, look, I've been telling you he's been struggling to make the weight, and that they're going to put the fight off, right? However, what you can't say is that he didn't get the jab. For a start, you know the German national football team? They have actually banned their players from taking the jab up until after the European Championships. This is because of the health impact that it could have. Within 3 weeks, and I don't want to hear anyone telling me, Chris, you got an agenda. This is official scientific data. Stop expecting everything to be spoon-fed to you. Go and look at it yourself. Within 3 weeks of the rollout in over 90 countries, I'll leave some links in the description box for you guys, the mortality rate spikes wherever it's been introduced. Now, who knows why that is? I'll leave that to you to decide. Okay, maybe it's people's immune systems going into overdrive. You tell me, I don't know. You go look into it. But this is a fact. So you have the German national football team that have stopped their players from having it. And then if they choose to want to have it after the European Championships, that's on them. But for now, because they don't want to risk their athletes getting ill or something happening to them, go look at a guy like Vidal, who plays for Inter Milan. He had the jab 19 days after having it. He actually got the virus and tonsillitis and is in hospital as a result. When was the last time you heard of, he was in hospital, I don't know if he's been released now. When was the last time you heard of a world-class athlete getting tonsillitis and getting seriously ill after having the supposed jab to protect him from what he's getting ill from, right? So, if anything, Bob, your boy Teofimo, had he been German, for instance, and part of that team, the entire medical team would have said to him, listen, you're not having this in the build up to this fight, because it could negatively impact your health and your athleticism. So what are we doing? What are you doing over here? Just blaming. Focus on your own limitations instead of putting out propaganda. This is a guy who's got some of the best talents in the sport of boxing. Josh Taylor, Terence Crawford, nobody knows who they are. You know what I mean? How is Josh Taylor not a superstar in the UK? Seriously, you could have him not having a promoter. No promoter at all. And all you do is book a weekly slot on Talk Sport, the radio show over here in the UK. Just have him on a little chat show, joining Adam Cattrall, giving interviews. He's going to become a bigger star than what Bob's done with him. What have you done with him? Floyd Mayweather had to leave Top Rank to go and get the money he deserved. You ruined the Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua negotiation. Everybody knows whose fault that was. Let's be real here. So what's he doing? And I used to defend Bob, right? I used to say, listen, I know a lot of people are saying he's senile and he's 90 years old and he's got to walk away from the sport. People say that when they watch his videos, his interviews, they've got to put it on +2 speed so they don't fall asleep. And I used to say, listen, it's a very experienced man. His energy levels would have dropped, but he's got people working for him. Todd DeBuff, he's got his son, family members, whatever. He's just overseeing things, right? Kind of like Barry Hearn, I guess, was doing, and really Eddie Hearn was the one controlling things, because that was happening way before the official handover to Eddie Hearn, right? I figured maybe something like that's going on. But then you look at Teofimo Lopez, the reason he left is because of the way Todd LeBeuf conducted himself. So it's an embarrassment over there. Sort out your own house and stop trying to focus on criticising guys that have left you because of your conduct. Anyway, moving on from that, let's talk about Deontay Wilder and that press conference with Tyson Fury. You know, this was really interesting, and Hatman did a terrific video on this, by the way. So go check that out, to do with the potential psychological messaging that it's given to the world. What is it conveying, what he did by wearing those headphones? My initial thought, and this is something that Hatman touched upon, and it reinforced my initial thought at the time, was this is an interesting mind game, because what he's essentially trying to do is stop the troller from trolling. Okay, there's no point in having a bunch of bullets if you haven't got something to fire them with. And so I figured that maybe what Deontay Wilder was trying to do here is stop Fury from being able to get into his head. And Fury would have wanted to have gotten into his head. That's the point. So it would have been frustrating. And an example that Hatman thought of, which I didn't think of at all, was when Steve Collins was wearing headphones when Chris Eubank Sr. was making his entrance to the ring. And that irritated Eubank to no end. So the idea is, I want to be center of attention. I want to get in your head. I'm going to say certain things, and you're not giving him that black platform. You're blanking him, right? Well, that is potentially an effective measure. However, I've since reversed my position on this because of what Deontay Wilder then did. He then went back to a hotel room where he's given interviews to the same old, I don't even want to call them media, man, but I guess you have to, the same old boxing press who are very close with Deontay Wilder. And he basically started going off on Paulie Malignaggi. He was reverting back to that whole Adrian Broner saga, whereby Paulie Malignaggi's side piece, as he called her, ended up getting with Adrian Broner at a later time, and Adrian Broner was saying he took his girl, and Paulie was saying, if she's my girl, ask her my mother's name. She don't even know my mother's name. And he was giving certain basic questions just to prove that this was not my girl, it's just someone I was sleeping with, basically. And when I got rid of her, she then came running to you, and you're trying to get in my head. It's not going to happen. But obviously, Adrian Broner played on that, and it was a very entertaining piece of mind game, I guess you could say at the time. It helped swell up the beef. That is a great build up to that fight. Well, Deontay Wilder referred to that and he said, one thing that will never happen to me is me get my ass beat and my girl taken on the same night, right? So he's sort of referring to that. Well, to me, that suggests mentally he's all over the place, because all Paulie Malignaggi did was pick Tyson Fury to beat him. So I'm not being funny, but you don't want to engage or say anything to the guy that you've got to fight who just battered you. You don't want to say anything. You don't want to get in his head. You don't want to intimidate him. But then you want to leave. You don't want to talk to the press. You don't want to put any public announcements. Nothing like that. All you're going to say is there's bloodshed. And then you're going to leave and go back to your hotel room and go after a pundit. So, yeah, personally, I find that a little bit unusual. I'm not going to lie. I think that maybe it suggests that his mind's somewhere in the wrong place. I guess the alternative explanation to that would be that he wanted to get at Fury and say what he wanted to say, but there have been other people behind the scenes that have said, no, Deontay, let's play it this way. For this particular session, let's play it this way. The media are going to ask you some tough questions, because it's going to be the first time you're in front of many of them. You're better off blanking them, pretending that you'll only speak to the media that's friendly to you, and, you know, approach it that way, basically. And then it will all blow over, and then, you know, eventually it will be more about the actual fight coming up rather than what took place in the build up to this fight. aka the previous fight, and everything that happened after that previous fight. So maybe that's what's happened here, and when he got out the press conference, he just thought, yeah, I'm going to be myself now, and I'm going to start running my mouth to Paulie, right? It could be that. But I don't know, man. To me, it sounds, I don't know, it's unusual. It's an unusual thing for me. Moving on from Deontay Wilder, and moving on to Tyson Fury, he's back to his old tricks again. A few days apart from each other, he made two separate claims, right? 4 days apart. The first one was Usyk is a southpaw, clever, technically very good. He's smaller, but he handled Derek Chisora, who is physically tougher than Joshua. So while I'm absolutely confident of beating Wilder, I'm not so sure about AJ not losing the fight. Then a few days later, I don't believe Usyk's a heavyweight. I just think he's a pumped up cruiserweight. In my opinion, Chisora beats Usyk, and Joshua is a much bigger, stronger man. I think he walks right through Usyk. What is he playing at? What is he just having a bit of fun? Is it just because he's bored and he likes trolling people? Is it just because, you know, he says whatever he wants based on his mood? You know, what is it? I don't get it. Why does Fury do these things? I know a lot of people think, oh, he's just a clown. I think there's a bit more to it than that. I think he tries to think about what he's trying to do. I'll be honest with you. I know he's got this amazing reputation as a great, you know, being great at mind games. Personally, I don't think his mind games are that sophisticated. I think he's very, very confident. He puts that across. I think he genuinely believes in himself. If you were to put him on a lie detector test and he was to say, I think I'm going to knock Anthony Joshua out, I think he'd pass the lie detector test. So I think he truly believes in himself. But I don't think he's like a chess playing sort of dude when it comes to what you're going to say. George Groves was very, very good at the mind games, and he would think about what he was going to do. Everything was calculated. He's an intelligent guy. It's very different. Fury, I think, is almost off the cuff, and that's why, because he's off the cuff and it's just whatever he's feeling in that moment, I think that's why you'll see him make different statements that are often contrasting within days of each other. Let me know what you think about that. Additionally to that, I'd also be very, very surprised if Fury actually did go and get himself jabbed based on the things that he said in the past, which is just, by the way, a reference back to Bob Arum and his manipulative nature. You got to be careful of this guy, man. You got to be careful when it comes to Bob Arum. But Tyson Fury has said on public national TV, when he was asked if he would get it, he said, he sort of shook his head, he goes, I'm scared of needles, right? What does that tell you? And in a recent interview with Bisping, in the build-up to the press conference with Deontay Wilder, he referred to his father as a conspiracy theorist. Well, listen, if his dad's a conspiracy theorist and Fury's made some comments in the past which are conspiratorial in nature, and he's made that comment about, you know, being afraid of needles, I won't be surprised if Bob's just trying to say what he's saying, just something to try and target Teofimo Lopez, going back to Bob Arum, that is. But the point is, I'm linking this to Tyson Fury and what he's saying now. Is Tyson Fury just saying things like, oh yeah, I'm scared of needles, but then he would go and get one anyway? Or is he a thinker? In other words, is it just what he says, whatever he thinks of in that moment, regardless of any truth to it? Or is he willing to bend truth for particular reasons in order to be manipulative, to get into the mind of the opponent, to play mind games? What is the benefit of saying what he said about AJ and Usyk? He must know. It was only a few days ago I said something different. He's not that stupid. So what is the motive? That's what I'm asking you. What is the motive of him saying these different contrasting comments consistently? I also want to thank Dan Naylor at Naylor Boxing and Dean James at Dean James 83. Both of them pointed out an answer to a question I was looking for. So basically, a photograph went up on the internet of F.A. Ajagba and his sparring partners in preparation for Frank Sanchez. You had Ivan Ditchko there, the Olympic bronze medalist and Asian Games gold medalist, 9-0, I believe he is, very talented prospect. You had Jarrett Anderson, another very talented prospect, great mover. And then you had this mountain of a man that just towered above all three of them, and I didn't instantly recognize him. I didn't know who he was. So I basically put it out on Twitter, anyone aware, and both of these guys replied to me and let me know that it was Christian Tun. I appreciate it, guys. Thank you. So I had a little bit of a look at Christian Tun. In fact, Dan Naylor used to train with him at the Peacock. Dan Naylor is a British Board of Boxing Control boxing manager, by the way, so you can follow him at Naylor Boxing. And he used to train with him at the Peacock. And so he says he's a good fighter and a lovely guy. What I saw when I looked at him is that he's got somewhat of an ability to get on his feet a little bit and move a little bit. He's not a dancer. He's not an unbelievable mover, but he's also not just a plodder. He seems to try and think about what he's doing. he also likes to push a guy forward behind the jab. I did ask Dan if that was the case, and he didn't reply. So I don't know if maybe he feels that I've, I don't know, analysed him incorrectly. If you see this, Dan, let me know. I did only watch a couple of minutes of footage of him, to be honest with you. So I'm not going to go into any great detail about breaking this guy down at this stage. But the point I'm making here is that he seemed to be the sort of guy that might look to push him back in sparring, Efe Ajagba. And that to me is interesting because he's got some guys that can move in there. And Frank Sanchez can move. He's not Tyson Fury or Usyk, but he can move. And he's big and strong as well. So from what I've seen, when you're looking at these three guys that they've brought in, it's good preparation. Because Efe Ajagba, like I've said before, looks uncomfortable when he's being pushed back, in my humble opinion. And so these are guys that will not only offer movement, but perhaps can push him back too. So it seems like it's really good preparation. I think they're doing a great job. Doesn't necessarily mean he'll win the fight. I'll do a breakdown closer to the time of the fight. But yeah, that's interesting sparring. I think they're doing a good job there in preparation, Team Ajagba. Let me know, guys, what you think about all the topics we have discussed today. I thank you all for watching, and I will chat to you soon. Take care. God bless.